And with that, I want to keep us rolling right along to today's main program. I'm pleased to bring your Vice President of Service to the podium, Jan Levy, to introduce our main speaker. Jan, it's you.
Thank you, President Jeff. So I've known Gordon McHenry Jr. for a very long time. In fact, once when we were talking at a conference, we discovered that our parents even knew each other. While we don't remember each other as kids, I'm sure our paths crossed even then. So yes, that means Gordon is a Seattle native. Never mind, he attended Cleveland High School, I attended Garfield, but I like him anyway. Gordon is president and CEO of United Way of King County, a role he has had for just over a year. He spent 21 years at the Boeing Company, where he served in a variety of executive positions. His last role was as Director of Global Corporate Citizenship for Boeing's Northwest region. He left Boeing when he joined the nonprofit world, first as Director of Rainier Scholars, and then becoming President and CEO of Solid Ground. Gordon received his bachelor's from Seattle U and his law degree from Georgetown. He's been on numerous boards, and currently he chairs the Washington State Partnership Council on Juvenile Justice. He's a member of the King County Regional Homelessness Authority Implementation Board, and he's on the boards of the Chamber and the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust. Some things you might not know about Gordon. His father was the first Black engineer promoted into Boeing management. He loves hiking and the outdoors, which is something he learned growing up as a member of Boy Scout Troop 14. And a quality that he admires most in people is curiosity, which he describes as having the desire to learn from others. Gordon's wife is also a nonprofit executive, and they have 3 grown children. The thing you'll notice most about Gordon is that everybody likes him. He's just really a nice guy. So please join me in welcoming my friend, Gordon McHenry Jr. to Seattle 4. Thank you.
Wow. There is a benefit and there's a risk to being a native and being active. And today it's a benefit. Thank you, Jan, for that very kind introduction. It's really great to be with Seattle Rotary. We're going to talk about some challenging aspects to our lives. And I tell my team every day I look for a moment of inspiration and hope. And being with all of you today is giving me that inspiration, that really warm welcome of the new member, and the hope that we're having a positive impact around the world, in this case, South America, Guatemala, with the Stovetop project. So thank you for keeping me focused and keeping me hopeful. What I want to do today is talk a little bit about 2 big challenges facing our community, the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, as well as our challenge with racial justice. And I would hope to end in enough time so we could have a dialogue, some questions and some conversation. So that's my goal. And I will jump into some prepared remarks and then see what's on your mind. So as Jan indicated, I've had this interesting path through life. I recently reached a personal milestone, the 1-year anniversary as CEO of United Way. I think now I'm up to about almost 14 months. I joined knowing there was a lot of important work to do, and of course not aware, like any of us, that we would go through 2020, a year of unprecedented, rapid, and debilitating change. Incredibly disruptive, and I would not want to be anywhere else than at United Way in times like these. I think our work at United Way has never been more relevant and more needed. On a personal level, I, like too many folks in our region, have been impacted by all the disruption, the distress, and the dismay of the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and racial and ethnic injustice. When I joined United Way 14 months ago now, almost. It was with a commitment to increase our collaboration, to increase our advocacy for systems change, and to lead courageously with racial equity. So here we go. I want to talk first about racial equity in United Way. My journey to United Way reflects some core values, and I'm here with you as an advocate, no longer a practicing lawyer, but an advocate for social justice. I've always believed that solving our society's greatest challenges requires authentic partnerships between the public, private, community-based organizations, and philanthropic sectors. That's why leading United Way was such a great opportunity for me, a local person who appreciates how far we've come and how far we have to go to transform our region into one that is truly just and equitable. When you're working to dismantle centuries of oppression, and you heard me right, centuries of oppression, it is not a quick or easy task. And for us at United Way, it's not just a matter of shifting investments or external granting policies. Through our delivery of services and our relationship with agencies that are in the community, we are aware of the inequities, the growing inequities of social economic status and access to healthcare and education opportunities. These are inequities that are correlated to race, ethnicity, gender, and geography, right here in the King County region. Last year, the United Way board launched a racial equity task force, and that has now become ongoing work for United Way. Our racial equity work is both internal and external. It involves our staff, the leadership of the organization, our board, and our volunteers. This past summer, all United Way employees and our board read Decolonizing Wealth by Edgar Villanueva. We look to his, and we're following his indigenous wisdom for guidance in our work of leading with racial equity. I encourage you to take time to read Decolonizing Wealth. It is a wonderfully challenging, it's candid, and it's complex. There are three core areas that I remind myself and our team that were discussed at length in Edgar's book. Philanthropy in the US is a descendant of harmful colonialism, and it benefits from systemic racism. Number two, philanthropy must evolve so that power and focus is centered in the communities that are intended to benefit, not with the donors who are making the contributions. The evolution that we're talking about has to be one that moves from transaction-based to relationship, and it requires being in and with the community that we desire to support and serve. It requires listening, learning, and then investing. When I talk outside of the philanthropic sector, it requires listening, learning, and then taking action. And that action is with and in support of the communities that are intended to benefit. So we're changing on the inside to be able to better change the outside. We're intentionally increasing our engagement with BIPOC communities by listening to them, learning from them, and intentionally investing our grants and our support to disrupt the status quo. I want to talk a little bit about COVID, pandemic COVID, and our community response fund. When COVID struck our community last March, Tony Mestris, who is my counterpart at the Seattle Foundation, he and I put our heads together and we agreed this was the time for United Way and the Seattle Foundation to stand together, shoulder to shoulder, in collaboration to raise funds in response to COVID. We were one of the first communities to do so, and that strategic collaboration between a local community foundation and the local United Way was replicated across the United States. Our collaboration was intentional and it was transparent, and it did not hinder the Seattle Foundation from raising funds on its own or hinder United Way from launching our own successful community relief fund for COVID-19. And the work we do around responding to COVID remains relevant because in addition to the health implications of this pandemic, our region is experiencing an incredible economic crisis. more than 529,000 people here in King County have lost their jobs between March 10th to November 7th. And that statistic was before the most current restrictions were announced and put in place in the latter part of November. So we know that even more people are at risk of losing employment, and we know that certain communities will continue to be hardest hit. We'll show a slide now that shows that the very same communities in King County that have been hardest hit by the coronavirus have also experienced the harshest effects of the economic downturn. Data shows and tells us that our Latinx make up about 10% of our population, but they represent 28% of the COVID cases. Blacks and African Americans are about 7% of our county's population, but represent a disproportionate 13% of the COVID cases. And we're seeing the disruption of COVID playing out in really two main areas, at least for United Way. Rental assistance, so the difficulty in paying rent, and increasing record levels of food insecurity, the inability to feed oneself or feed family in a given period of time. And we're fortunate in Washington State to have an eviction moratorium, one that's been extended several times and now is in place through at least December 31st. But even when you have a moratorium, the rent is still due. So for too many people in our community, their rent debt is just piling up during this time of the pandemic. I would assert to you that our region's homelessness and housing stability system was broken and has been broken for a long time, pre-COVID-19. That's why you can have a point in time count when we all go out and count people who are living unsheltered or living in shelters, living outside or in shelters, and we find that over 12,000 people were experiencing homelessness this past January. And when you look at our homelessness situation, both before COVID and continuing, disproportionality based upon race, ethnicity, and geography exist. For example, Black and African Americans make up 7% of the population, but 25% of folks who are experiencing homelessness. Native Americans, around 1% of the county population, but 15% of the homeless population. This is a result of systemic racism. Just think about how your housing costs, the ability to be housed, is inextricably linked to income and to wealth accumulation. Our community, like all across the country, suffered from redlining, which stopped in the late 60s, but there are long-standing and existing biases in the mortgage lending system. So the pandemic didn't create the disparities, but it has certainly shown a bright light on them. It is the kind of thing that should keep us all up at night, knowing that we have these kind of problems in our community. It is what makes me glad to work at United Way, because we're focused. When this many people lose their income, we know who is hit the hardest. It is people who have not had equal opportunity to accumulate wealth. It's dramatically people of color. When COVID-19 hit, we rebuilt our eviction prevention program known as Home Base to provide rental assistance to people who lost income due to the pandemic, and that work is continuing. You have to understand that in our region, and we can show slide 3, eviction equals homelessness. Rental assistance is fundamentally a homeless prevention strategy. And our rental assistance program, we call it home-based rental assistance, has helped more than 9,500 individuals so far this year. More than 70% of the applicants have been people of color. Keeping people in their homes is cost-effective, and it reduces the trauma of homelessness. But our community and this nation do not have enough homeless prevention resources. At United Way, we work with landlords and property management companies to make as big of an impact as we can, stretching donor dollars further. What we do is we negotiate with the landlords. They accept a partial payment that's based upon a housing and urban development rent and income limit that guides the work in King County. And doing that, by this negotiation, it allows us to serve more people and provide several months of help to some households. We're now being able to provide up to 6 months of rental help to some families. So United Way and many other funders and providers recognize we have to provide large amounts of crisis response. But equity, racial equity, necessitates providing services that are more targeted, that are specifically investing in and with our BIPOC communities. So we're at United Way targeting our investments both to go into the mainstream systems and to be specifically invested into the Black, Indigenous, and communities of color that exist in King County. So far at United Way, we have a Black Community Fund, we have an Indigenous Fund, and we have a Seattle Community Fund, or Seattle Community Food Fund. And I want to take a moment to show a little bit or highlight a little bit of our food-related work, because as I said at the beginning, the two areas that we're focused on in this incredible time is both housing and food insecurity. And if I could get a little of an assist, we'll play just a 1-minute video that was aired on our local TV show magazine, Evening Magazine, early this week to give you an example of this work.
Well, times have been tough for a lot of people lately, especially those who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Angela met up with a group that's doing their best to fill that void.
While most people are sleeping, some others are already hard at work, making sure their neighbors don't go hungry.
This is United Way's Doordash home delivery model. We partner with Safeway and local food banks, as well as Doordash, to provide home delivery of groceries to households in need across King County. Since COVID-19 started, about 1 in 3 people in Washington has reached out for food supports in the last 9 months. And so we're seeing really increased rates of hunger across the community.
To help combat those rising numbers, crews from Safeway start packing boxes of food long before the sun comes up.
We start on Monday mornings at 3 a.m. and we usually do 4 people, 8 hours. Each box has about 23 items in it, anything that you could possibly need to make more than 1 meal.
Once the boxes are packed, drivers from food delivery service Doordash arrive to pick up the precious cargo.
You'll come here, show the folks who are working here what your order is. I got 9 orders. It can be a couple of boxes for a couple of houses. Most often it's a chain of maybe 8 to 10 boxes for 8 to 10 households. They're loaded up on a cart. I pull it out to my car, load it in the car, and then I just go from one to the next to the next to the next. We do them set up as no contact deliveries. When we get to each location, you call up the person who's to receive the box. It's very easy and it all goes through very quickly.
We're currently serving about 2,300 people per week, with plans to expand the program to reach 3,000 people per week by the end of the year.
For everyone involved in the program, helping neighbors when they need you most makes these deliveries extra special.
Not just making a buck, you're actually doing something good.
That is such a great program. If you would like to contribute to United Way's COVID Community Relief Fund, we have the link up on our website, king5evening.com.
Thank you. So this one is really emblematic of what we try to do at United Way, working in partnership with lots of folks to drive impact. So this partnership is enabled by the City of Seattle, with some community food fund funding, other organizations that are in the community that help identify who is struggling and has difficulty accessing healthy and culturally appropriate food. Safeway Foundation as a major enabler. Doordash is a critical partner. And for those of you who follow the Seattle Seahawks, or more importantly, in this case, Russell Wilson and Russell and Ciara and their Why Not You Foundation, they're also partnering and helping spread the news and supporting this effort. And so this is part of who we are at United Way, trying to work closely in the community, designing and piloting programs that work. We measure it, we refine it, we adjust, we engage the community to support the work, to bring it to scale, leverage dollars, certainly public support whenever possible to make it sustainable, And then when the time is right, we leave the community with a system in place to address and solve the problems. And that's probably where I want to sort of finish my prepared remarks and then see what on your mind. Sometime soon, hopefully by spring, we will all be working on recovery. But I'm one of those folks who asserts we don't want to come through this pandemic and have things go back to the pre-COVID normal. What we need to do is create a new normal. We need an inclusive and equitable economic recovery that accelerates our region toward the goal of being one where all residents have the opportunity to thrive. So you remember the slide we looked at that showed coronavirus infections by race? I'm getting ready to show you another slide now. It's about school readiness for the 2019 school year. And we're going to see there similar disparities. And we shouldn't be surprised because the same factors, inability to afford a safe, stable housing without multiple jobs, lack of system support like affordable health care, affordable and reliable childcare, relief from food insecurity, these all create incredible stresses on our families, especially our younger families. So we're facing two crises, COVID-19 and racism, both of which still need active addressing and vast progress for our communities to heal. The COVID-19 pandemic precipitated economic disruption and had a disproportionate impact on those people who are furthest from opportunity, particularly people of color. And while general economic recovery is essential for all, for many it's not sufficient. As we rebuild our economy, we have to do so equitably, and we have to do so from a perspective of sustainability. It's our community's challenge, and it is also an opportunity. We'll show slide 5, which is the school readiness one. At United Way, we believe education is a critical pathway out of poverty. We must start early. We must work to change systems so that all children feel supported through and to high school graduation and beyond. We have to make sure that when young people are disrupted from their education, that they have pathways back into the education sector. We need to be able to support young people and adults who turn to our community colleges to gain certification and degrees to improve their ability to provide for themselves and their families. The community impact we have at United Way is enabled by nonprofit partners, direct service staff, volunteers, individual donors, public sector funders, and corporations. When we work together with intentionality, with courage, and guided by racial equity principles, I'm confident we will not only survive this pandemic, we will make important progress toward a community where all people have homes, students graduate, and families are financially stable. I really appreciate the time, the opportunity to be with you and to be in conversation with you. So in the time remaining, let's have a little dialogue. Thank you.
Gordon, thank you so much. That's awesome. You are doing an incredibly powerful job. So thank you for all you do for our community. We have about 6 minutes to go, and I got about 6 or 7 questions. So are you ready for some rapidness, some rapid questions?
I'm ready for some rapid questions.
All right. Has the pandemic environment impacted United Way's fundraising capabilities? If so, in what ways? You kind of touched on that. Maybe just go a little bit deeper.
Yes, it's not quite the best of times and the worst of times, but when it comes to workplace donations, workplace campaigns, which is a portion of United Way's work here and across the country, we're down about 15% across the nation. United Ways are reporting an 11 to 20% decline so far. So yes, that's impacting us because of COVID. Less people are running campaigns, less people are employed. Those who are employed have a lot of stress and economic challenges, and we're not connected. It's all virtual. The best of times, I won't say best, we are benefiting from federal dollars, the CARES Act. So that money's flowing into the state of Washington and then to the local counties. We have funding from the city of Seattle and King County that's enabling quite a bit of our rental assistance work here in this fourth quarter of this year, and some of our food security work. I'll stop there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, very good. Have certain so picking up on that, have certain companies donated more than usual to help United Way to make up for pandemic-related shortfall? Did the Seattle Times editorial help?
We're yes. The short answer is yes. Some companies are making above and beyond. We call them above and beyond gifts. We sort of know how we work with them, and they're saying we want to do more. Our employees want us to do more. We trust United Way. So yes, that's happening. The Seattle Times editorial is helping drive folks to United Way. We're still fourth quarter, and certainly December is a little bit to, I think the earlier person, is the time when a lot of people make tax incentive donations. So we will, we feel like we're getting a good bump, but we're not sure yet.
Okay. How does United Way work with the King County Coalition to combat homelessness?
With me, and we don't have time for a long answer, but I also have with me Sarah Levin, who is our Vice President of Community Services and a leader in Leadership Tomorrow with Jan Levy. But yeah, we work very closely with our coalitions. We work closely with the City of Seattle, with the county, really strong relationships, and with the housing providers. Sarah and I co-chaired the All Home, which is one part of our homeless response, and we continue to be very active at those tables, trying to design strategies to reduce homelessness and services to meet those who are currently suffering from homelessness. And we do that in partnership.
Okay. Please talk about another UW project outside of the pandemic, Bridge to Finish.
Bridge to Finish, great. We have, as most of you know, we have 10 community colleges in King County. United Way has a relationship with all 10 of those community colleges, where we provide a younger person, AmeriCorps, Vista kind of person, who before the COVID was actually sitting in a centralized space at each one of those campuses, now is virtually accessible. And we would provide a trusting place, space, and person. And we also had emergency assistance. So if you came in and said, hey, I'm in school, I don't know how I'm going to buy food this week, we have emergency funds, in kind and cash. I can't repair my car, that's how I get to school before COVID. I'm having difficulty paying my rent. So with somebody they could relate to and could provide non-academic emergency support. So it's called Bridge to Finish. Just really quick, the population in our community colleges, the vast majority are first in their family to go to college. The vast majority speak more than one language. They are raising families. They are people of color, and they're living on moderate to low incomes. And so we really invest there, and we're trying to grow this program so that those folks who choose a 2-year pathway post high school get that certification, puts them on a path to a living wage, family wage, and those type of careers, and therefore remove them from some of the challenges they had before they went to college. And so we're very concerned that we could have thousands. We're in a relationship with over 10,000. I think, no, it's 8,000, about 9,000 college students right now. And we've working with them to keep them in school, very concerned that this is going to disrupt a large portion of folks who had planned to complete community college, but are being challenged because of COVID.
Okay. I got time for one more question. You got about 30 seconds.
All right.
Well, and it's a great question. I mean, they're all good questions, but this one's really interesting. What will United Way's new normal look like specifically, and how will it be measured? How's that for a blockbuster last question?
We are going to be much more intentional about working with, we call them BIPOC led and BIPOC serving. So we will work with our large organizations and partners and funders, but we're also very intentional about going into these communities where the greatest needs exist, finding organizations that have a strong relationship, culturally, ethnically, geographically based, learn from them, partner with them, be much more flexible in our granting, allow them to help guide us and in terms of how they define success, and then work on that and from a relationship basis over a number of years. And so that's work we're designing right now, and we will roll out. It'll probably take a year or two to actually get it up and running fully, as it's going to be a shift. But that's what our work will look like.
Okay. Gordon, thank you so much for being with us today. We all appreciate it very, very much. Keep up the amazing work. I know it's been a tough year, but I think it sounds like the United Way is in good leadership. So thank you. I've got a great team. John Fine did a great work, and he's got some great people there. And we have friends and partners across this community. We hope all of you are in that category. You're called to service just like we are, and that's what makes this community so special. So thank you so much. All right, very good.